Welcome back to the Before Work podcast, where all we talk about is things that relate to our childhood. So let's hope you're in that demographic. If you're not, I hope you like the sound of two guys talking into microphones.
I mean, that's sort of a podcast, at least. I mean, I think
that is most podcasts.
I think they've bought into that at least by clicking on a podcast and hitting play. But I mean, maybe it was just a really unlucky sort of pocket dial kind of situation. Their butt really wanted to listen to us, but they didn't want to.
Dude, I'm hoping, I would love to know people that have accidentally found this podcast from all over the world who were expecting something else. And what they were expecting, I would love to know that. We never will, probably.
I mean, they could always email us.
We still have that email?
We still have that email.
Wow.
Before Work Podcast, all
at Gmail, right?
At Gmail, just Before Work Podcast at Gmail. No periods, no numbers, no swapping of letters, no capitals of. I guess maybe you can do capitals. I don't know if emails are case sensitive.
Yeah, I don't know if they're case sensitive. That's a great question.
I don't think they are.
I feel like they're not.
And then, or they can use Twitter. We have the Before Work Pod Twitter account.
Have we been tweeted at all?
I think we have some follows from some other new podcast people who have like a similar, just two dudes doing a thing.
All we need is one mistaken. We need to just be mistaken for something by one celebrity.
We need one celebrity to accidentally tweet at us or like mention us in their tweet by accident. Maybe they're some other before work, maybe like before work pad.
Here's the question: what celebrity would you want it to be?
That's wow. I would think that's a tough one. I mean, the easy one of the podcast world would be Joe Rogan, or there's some other, like the people that are kind of part of that.
What if Alex Jones accidentally tweeted at us?
Wow, that could. I don't know if I want that kind of publicity. We're not. I don't know. Can we be yelled about easily? I mean,
right.
But actually, I think a good one that'd be kind of funny would be someone. I'm thinking like Adam Sandler, who like doesn't even really use social media.
Yeah.
Or he just accidentally tweeted about us.
I want it to be Matthew McConaughey.
Ooh, all right.
He'd be a great one.
Yeah.
Because then he'd be like, "Yeah, check it out, man. It's cool." Stinking Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, I could picture him listening to us and not laughing, just going as after like each sentence that we stated.
Two guys just sitting there talking about what they like. I'm about that.
All right. So
okay. So what do you got for us, Grant?
All right. So we're going to be talking about something that I think is that we have a fairly good understanding of, and this is the top selling video games of the 1990s.
So this is top selling, not necessarily opinionated. This is facts.
This is just strictly units sold.
This is units sold
for video
the success
games
of 90s.
Yeah.
So you have the list in front of you. You have all 10.
Yeah.
Let me try to guess. I'm going to give you 3 guesses. Let's see how many are on that.
All right.
So this is Evan's guesses of the top 10 video games sold in the 90s. These can be for any system at any point in the 90s.
Any point in the 90s from January 1 of 1990 to December 31st of 99.
So my first guess would be that Final Fantasy VII is on that list.
It is not.
Wow, that's ridiculous. My second guess would be, I would guess that Super Mario World is on that list.
It is, yes.
I would guess that Crash Bandicoot 3 is on that list.
It is not.
Wow. Well, I gave you 3. I only got 1 out of 3.
Yeah, you got 1 out of 3. I think you're missing the obvious. So do you want me to just go down the list, just give you the 1 through 10 of the top 10?
Can you give me from 10 down to 1?
10 down to 1? Okay, 10. So 10, this game came out in July 14th, 1993 with 10.55 million.
Wait a minute. There's Sonics are on that list.
We will get to a Sonic. Yes.
I can't believe I forgot about Sonic.
So this game came out for the SNES.
Of course.
It is Super Mario All-Stars.
Super Mario All-Stars.
That's
Super
number
Mario
10.
All-Stars. Yes.
So number 9 with 10.85 million units. Came out in December 23rd, 1997, which, you know what they were trying to hit that Christmas hype.
That'd be N64?
Now this is a PlayStation game. This is Gran Turismo original, number one.
First GT.
So that one was a big game.
Understandable.
Then 8 with 11.18 is Super Mario Land 2.
Yeah.
6 golden coins.
Yeah.
7 is Super Mario 64 with 11.9 million. And this is where the ones you missed. You should have thought of these ones. Number 6, Pokemon Yellow.
Oh my goodness! I didn't even bring in the fact of handhelds.
14.6. Yes, the Game Boy.
Isn't that Super Mario Bros. Like the 6 coins or whatever? That's for Game Boy too, isn't it?
That's Game Boy.
Yeah, I remember that.
Then Sonic the Hedgehog is number 5 with 15 million. Lemmings.
Yeah.
20 million
for N64.
Multi-platform. So they actually, I looked up that game because I was like I remember that game, but I don't really remember much about it.
It was very much a 90s franchise. They made a couple of the games.
Yeah, they had a bunch of other Lemmings related stuff, but it actually came out in a lot of different stuff. I don't think it would have hit this list if they would have limited to one of the major platforms, because it did it came out on like everything. Computers, consoles, whatever. Number 3, Super Mario World, 20 million. Number 2, Pokemon Gold and Silver.
Wow.
23 million.
Those were 98, huh?
That was 99.
99.
And then Pokemon Red, Green, and Blue, number 1 with 31.38 million.
30. Well, but that's adding all 3 of those together, they're saying.
Yeah, that's one.
Even though they were basically the same game, but they were.
If you would separate them, even though green and blue were technically like two sides of the same coin, because red and blue were separate, or you had green and blue, if I remember correctly, or is it red? No, you had red or blue or red or green.
Yes, and yellow was the unique.
Yellow came out later, and
they
have that separate on here. So if you take the green and blue as combine that as one, because it was sort of like you either had green or you had blue in your market, then it would have been about 15 million still. So that would still hit them in the top 10. It would just shuffled stuff around a little bit.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm very surprised that there are that Crash 2, 3, or CTR did not make the top 10.
So let me see where they are, because this list goes beyond that. So I'm trying to see if there is.
Not surprising that over half of them are Mario games.
There were 22 is Crash Bandicoot Original, and that moved 6.8 million units. But Final Fantasy 8, 7 million. Let me see if I see Final Fantasy. Yeah, Final Fantasy 7 was 9.8 million, so up there. There's again, it was pretty tight. And again, if you do break apart the Pokemon games, they still hold their own, because they still, if you break them into the Pokemon Red, Green, and Blue as 3 separate games, they still hit around 10 million, because it was 31.3.
I didn't even consider handhelds.
But so what's really interesting is, of the top 10,
how many Nintendo?
7 Nintendo
exclusives.
7 Nintendo, spread between SNES, 64 and the Game Boy. So, and again, they're not only the they're the publishers, but they also for some of the Mario games, they were also the developer. So they developed and published some of these games. And then what's interesting is PlayStation only had one game, which was Gran Turismo.
Right.
The Genesis had Sonic the Hedgehog, and
but if I recall, because I'm sure the same for the 80s with the original Mario, I think Sega a lot of Segas were shipped with the original Sonic, maybe. I might be getting that wrong, but I think at one point Segas were shipped with the Sonic game.
Well, let's see what Wikipedia says, because they know everything, and they're always right.
Yeah, it's interesting how saturated the market is with Mario, but still how collectible literally I would say every Mario game except for Dr. Mario.
So this is interesting. I did not know this. So Sonic the Hedgehog game came out for the Genesis, as we know. It was released in North America first, and then went to Japan and the Asia markets a month later. So
that's pretty interesting. It's typically the exact opposite.
But again, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that the Sega brand was was like an American market kind of targeted thing. Again, it was
with Nintendo and Sony being Japanese.
Yeah, like again, they are. I mean, they are a Japanese brand, but I think that they had more of like a hit the U.S. market kind of focus. I'm trying to see if it says here.
I don't want to agree with you on that. It's wild to look at the Game Boy and really how Nintendo has owned the handheld market virtually forever. I mean, the PSP made a run, but it has owned the handheld market, and how incredible is it that they got out at the exact right time with the 3DS being really the last one, even though the Switch can be portable, but because of how the cell phone and iPads, or I should say tablets, have saturated the handheld gaming market, Nintendo was so wise in when to get out. The 3DS was still a major success.
Yeah.
But now that they're out of specifically making and selling portable console, handheld console games and systems, I can't believe that they were that wise to get out when they did.
Yeah, I think again they've sort of taken a more targeted approach to their handheld. I mean, because the games you play now on your phone are sort of like the games you played with the OG Game Boy, the Fat Boy.
It's so crazy to me. Like you forget how successful all the variations of the Game Boy were. They were so successful.
And they're also, again, some of the stuff they did was they just made them durable. Like they could have, again, that's where things get a little bit different now. Back then they actually didn't choose to put in the newest cutting edge technology. They put in what was reliable and what was durable. Like they could have done a better screen. They could have done smaller packaging, rechargeable batteries, that kind of stuff in the original one. But they said, let's go with what's going to last because, well, they wanted to. And again, also, I think it's interesting. The Game Boy, I watched a kind of a historical video on it, was that the idea was targeting people on the train because
that makes sense.
Because, in Japan, they have a lot of train travel, a lot of mass transit stuff going on. And the guy who developed it kind of came up with the idea, was sitting on the train one day and saw some person hanging out reading a book and other people playing like these. I don't know. I don't quite understand, how it worked, but a game kind of like a game you played by writing out numbers and stuff, kind of like Sudoku. But like something like that, but their own thing, stuff like that's happening on the train. He was like, people need entertainment on the train, something that's portable, but also,
man, that's interesting,
reliable, and also like simple. You didn't need a crazy game that was going to be complex. You just need something to kind of hold you over while you're doing stuff, and they blew it up with that.
Do you remember you owned a Game Boy when you were growing up?
Oh,
do you remember what Game Boy, what version, and what color you owned?
So my first personal Game Boy was a Game Boy Color. It was like Crayola blue.
Yeah, you had the blue.
It was. We had all the Pokemon. I mean, I was part of those millions of sales. I was one of them.
Same.
So, I mean, I played that thing a lot. I mean, that thing has a lot of wear. I mean,
You still have it?
Yeah, it's around somewhere. I mean, I think, the classic stuff like. I had to use like tape / stickers or whatever to keep the battery
the battery cover on,
because I didn't break mine. It just wore. The tab wore so much that like if you're holding it, it was fine, but if it got tossed around the backpack, the cover would pop off, and it would, and you that was the only like, I guess, durability issue of it, but that was strictly from burning up so many batteries.
Yes,
that was batteries were the worst.
I had the green Game Boy Color, like the bright lime green Game Boy Color. Yeah. For road trips up to New York, I finally convinced my parents to buy me the worm light attachment.
Yep.
Which really was awful because of how terrible the light was. Like you could move it around, but it would really only shine on a portion of the screen because you couldn't put it too close to the screen because then you couldn't see the screen. You'd have to have it above, but because of how the light was, it would really just make one portion of the screen like invisible, or I should say you would only see the light because of however the
so
screen
bright.
It was so bright.
It was like,
and then
this hot spot.
Yeah, you'd have this hot spot where it was just pure white and you couldn't see what was actually playing on your system. And then the rest of it was just kind of like a little bit lighter. But then the outskirts of the screen were still pitch black because it'd be nighttime and you'd be using this terrible worm light.
Yeah, I remember.
But nonetheless, as a kid, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Now I can play in the car. when it's dark.
I remember my dad would get so mad because we would be in the minivan, and I was the youngest, so I was all the way in the back with the like less comfortable bench seats.
Yeah.
So instead of like in the captain chair, second row stuff, and they had those like map lights in the back.
Yes.
And my dad never, like, we always were driving at night for whatever reason. It's just the way he did it. But he always gets so mad because I turned one of those map lights, and he'd be like, stop, like that's bothering me, like turn that off. And I'm like, I'm trying to play. I'm like, hold on, let me save first, I remember that.
Yeah, dude. Do you remember the battles with handheld games of like, well, wait, hold on. Let me just get to a save point. I remember fighting with my parents over having to go somewhere or do something or come out of the car, and it was like, well, I can't just stop the game.
Yeah.
And then how about the battles on like Saturday mornings when you'd have to come up or downstairs for breakfast when you were playing video games, and you're like, I can't come right now. I have to save the game. Hold on. And you have to wait till a checkpoint to save.
Yeah.
Like that was video gaming, man.
Or you like you had to stop and like get out, and you're on AA batteries, and your options are like, okay, do I have enough battery life that I can just leave this running kind of in this spot where nothing's happening? Like you're playing Pokemon, you're in the middle of the Elite Four battling, and you're like, it's my turn. If I just chilled, nothing's gonna happen.
That's right.
But will the game die before I get back? So I risk it?
That's right. And that was really dependent on how bright your red light was. Your red power light on the front of the screen.
Yeah.
Depending how bright that was. But I recall wow, we're already 16 minutes in. I recall that like internal struggle of, okay, do I start a part of this game that I know I'm going to have to commit 30 minutes to, and I know I don't have like you'd have to think through stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't just save whenever.
Yeah, I mean, you knew
for Pokemon games, especially like with the Elite Four.
The Pokemon game, like you knew, like okay, you're in a grind state where you're just trying to like train your Pokemon up. You're just battling wilds. You're not worried too much about getting in the middle of something.
Yeah.
So you're
not like getting into a gym leader fight or anything.
Yeah. You just you have to be chill about that. But like there's other games where you needed to get to a save point. Save points were just they were the worst. I mean, again, it was just a part of what it was, or or it's always the unexpected things where you're like, oh no, battery's dying.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't saved in a while because I got lost in this game.
Yeah,
and you're trying to like beat it as quick as you can.
Yes,
and I remember a couple of times where I'd go, all right, it's not worth trying to win this battle, and I just throw the battle as quick as I could, so that way I could faint, get recovered, and save. Because I didn't save the last hour of me playing because I was not smart.
And we kind of talked about this last week. I think it was last week. Like video games weren't convenient. So gaming was convenient. You had a home console or you had a portable console. But the way that developers made the games, it wasn't convenient. It made it so that you had to put effort in or time in, and it wasn't just like a save anywhere type of game for the most part.
Yeah,
games weren't convenient like that, whereas today they are. Like you don't die in a lot of games. You just don't die. Like you don't have 5 lives that then you get sent back to level 1. Like there's just always a continuous amount of playing in today's games, and that's, I mean, it makes them streamlined, but it doesn't make them competitive.
I think it doesn't make them rewarding. Like nothing's more frustrating but also rewarding than like hitting that wall in the game where you're like, I can't.
Like
it requires doing the right combination of things and having the right amount of luck. Like the like Pokemon games where you're in a battle with somebody who's just like outside of your slam dunk, win kind of thing, and so you're like, all right, well, I guess I'll just have to keep trying, and you're just putting out these right moves, and you're just hoping, you're like, please don't use that one move that always wrecks me, or like, please let me be able to get my move in first, because we each can do a one hit KO on each other, and I just got to be first.
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of situations, you're waiting for that critical hit. Nothing more satisfying than getting a critical hit
whenever you need it most.
Yeah, and
I remember in Pokemon Gold, when you were, it was like you, I forget what part of the game it was, but you face some. It's a gym leader's Steelix. Remember Steelix?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I remember I didn't have any water Pokemon, and Steelix just completely destroyed me in like a couple hits the first time. And that's when you had to learn, okay, I need to go back and grind and get certain Pokemon, level them up to be able to defeat these types of Pokemon. And
I believe you're in second generation Pokemon, talking about whatever her name is.
Yes,
because that's the first time you faced Steel Pokemon.
I want to say it was like It's not Stacy, but yeah, it was in Pokemon Gold, which you were a Silver guy, weren't you?
I was Silver, but I played Gold too, and I have an original crystal with an original battery that still works.
Hey, that's wonderful. I have an original crystal. I have no idea if the battery works though, because I do not have a Game Boy.
Yeah. Anyways, on that was always really annoying because you Steel threw a little wrench in the works where one of its weaknesses was fire.
It was also fire, yeah.
But as being a Steelix, it also had ground in it. Mm-hmm. And so if you threw out, if you had a Charizard or whatever, or if you had what was Typhlosion?
Typhlosion was the fire. Cyndaquil was was your original,
and then up to Typhlosion. And
then
This was like the 5th or 6th gym leader, so you would have expected to have that at this point. But anyways, you would. It was really frustrating because you would just get wrecked. Yeah, and I remember that being like why?
Yeah, man. In Gold or Silver, did you ever catch Ho-Oh or Lugia?
Yeah.
Question: did you ever catch 3 of the dogs? 3 of the like?
Yeah.
Remember
I've caught them all,
dude. So I remember wasting a Master Ball on Ho-Oh in Gold, realizing that I could have caught Ho-Oh with Ultra Balls or even Great Balls if you got him down enough, but the Master Balls had to be saved for like the 3. I forget what they were called. It was like the 3
dogs,
exotic dogs,
3
or
legendary dogs.
Legendary dogs. That's what they were. They were so cool looking too. Yeah, and they'd be random in the game.
Yeah. So and those you actually can track and stuff. And this was my brother taught me this. When I was younger, because he older than me played the games. Because actually, this is one thing that's interesting. I was playing Pokemon games before I could read.
Really?
Yeah, I was playing Red and Blue before I could read. I just learned how to play the game by just watching my brother play and just doing what he did. I wasn't good at it, but I just knew what things did what. Like I when I say couldn't read, I mean like I couldn't read the full sentences where people are explaining stuff in the game. I knew like okay.
You could read like okay and run.
Yeah, and I kind of knew like some of the words. I knew and I could recognize enough that I could go through the menu system and do stuff. But I couldn't keep up with what they were saying because again that came out the red green and blue, but red and blue for us in the US of A.
States.
Came out in 96.
Yeah.
So I was 2.
Yeah.
So I didn't play it when it came out. I started playing it probably in like 98 when I was 4.
You know what's so interesting? So our parents, Jen, didn't grow up with video games in the least bit.
They had like pinball.
Yeah, they had pinball, and they had pinball. So it had to be
skee-ball, ball.
Yeah. But like it had to be so interesting for them, for their kids to come home and say, "I want you to buy me a Game Boy." Like what parents thought of video games like that? Because now, like the generation right above us. Well, okay, so the generation between our parents and us, and then our generation having kids now. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of my friends have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, and they're playing video games. We obviously know exactly what is out there. We know what video games are. We know the systems. Our parents must have been like, wow, like, Mike, how did my kid even hear about this?
Yeah.
Like, that had to be wild for our parents. And then to have, like, I remember, like, my parents buying me a PlayStation 1. I wonder what they thought about that, because they were not tech savvy. Obviously, had never played or really probably seen video games before.
Yeah.
Or they thought that they were only in arcades. Like, I know in the 80s arcades were huge, but like, it had to have been wild for our parents to then watch us be playing on these little rectangles in the back of the car.
Yeah,
and becoming addicted to them.
Yeah, I think, it's. My parents were fairly open-minded about it. I mean, they were wary of the age appropriateness of games, but they weren't like the Pokemon's for devil worshippers, but they also didn't want me to like be too obsessed with that kind of stuff where it's like I wasn't doing like physical activity.
Yeah.
So there was a balance in that way, but they never really worried about it being like, kids are going to go blind or, kids are going to, like whatever other like weird kind of strange fears that popped up. And they definitely did not, expect it to become as big, I think, as they did at first. I think they were like, this will be cool.
This will be a fad.
I also don't think they realized how much of a money pit they end up being for a
Yeah,
parent.
right.
Because you buy a console and you get a game comes with it. In some
you have
ways,
to buy
you're
a
like,
second controller.
and you're like, here you go. Like, here's the setup.
Uh-huh.
And very quickly, it's like, well, we beat the game.
Yeah. Now
And this new game came out.
And so the generation of games that we grew up with being, again, PS1, they were $40 new.
Yeah.
Next generation being 50, following two being 60. But so I think it's so good now how we view video games to where we like know how to buy them for either next to nothing or whatever that might look like. But you just brought up a good point of like the age appropriateness of games. I feel like that discussion is, and I don't think it's because we're older. I think we would have heard it more being older and still being involved in the community. But it's so interesting how that discussion is like mute at this point. Is that like, I wonder why, and my guess would be our country is just talking about so many other things that like that gets drowned out. You just don't hear that discussion as much as you did in the 2000s and like the early 2000s, late 2000s. That was a pretty common thing, was like mothers against video games and like, like.
I think also that some of the like unknown is not there anymore. Like we're pretty familiar with. So I also think that really games aren't like there were games that were surprisingly violent just for the sake of violence, and in some ways people are like, they just don't care about it. Like in shooter games, you're not really worried about a really realistic blood splatter or like gore in some way. And again, we the myth, the legend Joe Rogan talks about how in Quake, which had all sorts of cool violent textures and features and stuff, everybody just turned that stuff off because it got in the way. Because the games became about being competitive. And same thing happens with this kind of stuff, which is where when these games started coming out, like Mortal Kombat, where there's all this violence, that was sort of like part of their draw, which is that, oh, it's violent. But then after a while, people were just kind of like, well, we actually have more fun just playing the game for the game's sake
than watching the
blood
short,
gets in the way.
Yeah, right.
It gets in the way of the goal of the game.
And I'm thinking too, like I'm sure people, not that people against it gave up, but I'm sure that at this point, the like how savvy kids are with technology, like it's become like a non-issue all of a sudden. Whereas like before, like when we were growing up and people and kids were watching, whether it was Doom or like whatever video games, it was like, wow, this is so new, this is so real compared to it's so edgy. But now it's become so numb. Maybe we become so numb to it, and kids don't. I mean, like, do some kids get affected? Maybe.
Yeah.
Like maybe some do, but I feel like for the most part, it's just becoming a non-issue all of a sudden.
Yeah. Again,
and I think like, kids that have cell phones that are exposed to many worse things than violent video games, parents are like, okay, well, at least, they're not looking at whatever.
There is age appropriateness that is sort of just, people don't have to be told about it because they're already doing it, where like little kids on iPads, they have children-oriented games. As you get older, they know that you've sort of developed. There's not that like worry about being antisocial or having weird developmental issues from being sucked into a screen all day like they worry about 5-year-olds with iPads.
Yeah,
they sort of just let you be who you are, and they're not as worried. I mean, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think the fears have sort of gone from being what happens to 12-year-olds to being what happens to 2-year-olds because they're being exposed to that stuff. There's sort of not this initial age gap because I think everybody's a user. So everybody has an iPad, and then when they have children, their children are using iPads because they're using iPads. Just like how babies want to hold spoons because you're holding a spoon. Same thing happens with technology. Now it's just a little bit different because before, when our parents didn't play video games outside of maybe if they wanted to try to like be cool and hang out with us, which most of the time we just got annoyed because we're like, all right, you're starting over from like nothing right now, and like we're in the middle of trying to work this game.
Dude,
and
it's so funny how parents, like, I remember my parents trying, like, parents were just so bad at video games. No one's parent was good at video games.
I think there was a few, but it wasn't the norm.
It was not the normal. Now, like we were saying, the generation between our parents' generation and our generation specifically are better than their kids.
Yeah.
Because we understand we understand for the most part what games want and how to beat them. Like, yeah, it's super interesting, man. I just love talking about video games. I love that we're doing this.
Well, we'll keep talking about it. This will be sort of the trend for the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
I think.
So next week, let's do 2000s.
That'll be where it gets.
Real. Yeah, it gets very real. I won't look at anything. I have a guess as to one of them. How about this? Let me make some predictions. You've seen the list, right?
Yeah, it's not fresh enough in my mind to be able to say 100% yes on things, but I'll always do my best.
Okay. There's a couple that I know 100% are on there. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is on there. Guarantee it. I would think that Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2 is on there. I would think.
I believe you're right. If they're not, they're like right at the cusp.
And my last guess would be that Super Smash Bros. Melee would be on there. Don't tell me yes or no, but those would be my three guesses: GTA San Andreas, one of the first two Kingdom Hearts, and no, maybe not Melee, because GameCube didn't sell a crazy amount of systems. It'd be a bunch of PS2. It'd be a bunch of PS2 would be my guess. Okay, so maybe hold on. Instead of Melee,
Evan can't decide. He's too torn. I'm not giving him enough signals for him to be able to confirm his thoughts.
I would
say you're missing what was that? You were missing a
huge franchise.
Yeah, but it's okay. We'll talk about it next week.
Okay, we'll talk about it next week.
Evan will think about it.
I'll think about it. We'll get back to you. Welcome back. Come back next week to the Before Work podcast. We'll see you then.
God bless America.
God bless America.